Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Mattson.
Better read than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell your friends about us. Tell your family about us. Tell your parents about us. Tell your in-laws about us, because why the hell not?
Especially your mother-in-law that you hate. Tell her about us.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. God, that didn't take long at all, fellas.
Fanmaster. Yeah.
Fanmaster is here. No roasting me this time. No, you can roast me. Tell me more.
I can't wait to get you and Fanmaster's opinion on some things.
I know. There it is. Fanmaster, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again, man. So, yeah, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We are going to be here to talk about the second episode of Season 1 of The Last of Us on HBO. Looking forward to it. As you can tell, just to get the elephant in the room, I am in a very different location than normal. I don't have my Ohio State stuff. I don't have my fancy lights. I'm just in a hotel room here in Dallas, Texas. So enjoying it. Thanks for the welcome, Dallas. They fueled me with some drinks over the last few hours, so I'm good and ready to talk about The Last of Us. I'm going to take a step back. Mattson, it sounds like you have some questions. I'm very curious. I texted Alec. I'll tell you this story real quick, and then I'll let you ask some questions. I texted Alec right after I finished watching it for the second time, and I was like, so how'd you like this episode, Alec? And he sent me this gif of this dude, like, shaking his head and shit, because I knew that this was going to be a rougher episode. And I knew going in. I wasn't going to tell Alec that, but I knew what was coming. With the museum level.
It was not scary, but it was awesome. But
this guy scares.
It was terrifying, first of all, Mattson.
Yeah, this guy scares if somebody winks at him wrong. So
yes.
All right. I have a few questions. So one of the biggest things, Jay, that they talk. I love how HBO does kind of the post-credit debrief with their the producers and people like that. And so they talked about one of the bigger changes they made in the museum scene of it being the zombies? I guess I should call them that.
Clickers?
No, not the clicker. Well, that's separate. But
they're runners. Those ones are runners.
The runners, and how that's what was chasing them. But in the game, obviously, it was more the military at the time, and them making that executive decision. That's a big change from the game, where the purists could be like, I don't know. And then also how they presented how this virus traveled and doing that Indonesia scene, which had nothing to do with the game per se. How'd you feel about all that?
I was actually really good with all of it. So it was a little weird, especially I love the Indonesia scene. In fact, I got really excited when they opened that. I looked at Casey. I was like, we're getting backstory. I was like, I've wanted backstory for a very long time. So we kind of get to see, and we still don't know if that's patient zero or, if it was just it was an interesting way to portray kind of how that has gone. But I loved having that take on the Indonesia and seeing this poor woman kind of have really kind of some really struggles with, bomb it. Even the scientist was like, just bomb this city, everyone in it. I'm going to go be with my family now. So it was really an interesting take. I really love that part. I hope we get more of that kind of stuff in the future. And to kind of piggyback off that, to kind of Fanmaster's point here, I think we will start to see some of these extra opening scenes. And I don't disagree. I think he's probably right that we'll see a Frank and Bill, because that's a big difference from the game. And I don't want to go there yet. We'll talk about that next week. But I really enjoyed, too, the changes that they made. Because I think kind of what we talked about in the first episode is that there are certain things that don't translate well for the game. And one of the things that I liked was there's two major differences that I saw is one, and you talked about it, Mattson, how the fungus communicates with the runners or with the clickers. And I think that's genius, because I always did have an issue kind of in the games with the spores, because if you know anything about fungus spores, we breathe those in all day, every day. There's no way around it. That's a lot of times where allergies come from is, pollen, fungus, spores, things like that. So it was always a little weird to me because in the game there's like some places where it seems like the spores are like contained in like a room or within a certain area in the game.
They don't like go beyond that. And you're like, no.
Yeah, and from a game perspective, I get it fits and it works. But from a television perspective, I really liked that update that these, not only that, but the tendrils of this fungus can communicate across miles because it's actually accurate. It's true. That's how fungus will communicate. So I thought that was really great. And then to kind of go with what you said, like when we get to the Capitol and Tess, you're right. In the game, it's Fedra that took out the Fireflies group. It's Fedra that comes in and Tess says, "Give me a gun. I'm done anyway, so I'll give you time to get out of the Capitol and move on." I liked the fact that they were not true to that piece. I think if they do a season in the future of the second game, that leaves a lot more storytelling for Fedra as opposed to in Boston. It just didn't make as much sense. In the game it works, but I think it was really cool seeing the communication there when they kill that one and then it communicates with all those ones that we saw laying on the ground. I thought that was badass. And then that really creepy ass scene with poor Tess getting made out with by the fungus. Like that was rough. And so I'm very happy with all of it. Just keeping the idea that, hey, this is kind of like what FanMaster was saying. It's an adaptation, so there's definitely going to be, some creative license there. But so far, there's nothing that I don't like. Everything makes sense to me as to the changes.
And FanMasters, I asked the same question to Alec, and I'll answer myself too. Would love to hear just how you felt about it. As you played this game, you have your opinions. How did you feel about some of those deviations? But Alec, for someone that hasn't played the game, how did you feel about episode 2?
I'm still blown away because if I didn't know this was based on a game, I wouldn't be able to tell it was based on a game. Even the moments where they're going through the hotel, right, and it's blocked. That's something you see pop up in games all the time, but it didn't feel forced. It was a logical, made sense, rundown building, blockage, and having to take a different route. Not sure I would have gone through the museum route, but it all flows in the same way you'd expect just a straight television show to do, or just a straight story. So I'm still impressed that they're able to make it feel like it's not part of a game, and unless you really could come into this and not have a clue that it's video game based, which is amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for me, I appreciate, again, the end, the way HBO does at the end, them talking about how they approach the clickers, for instance, and that before they even started filming, they worked on just different renditions of what they wanted it to look like, as they knew the snobs were going to be like, hey, is it twitching the exact way? Is it yelling and twitching? Because it's been a few years since I played this game, but I still remember how they walk, how they like hold them, all that. And you could tell they spent the time, and it's that level of detail in the renditions they came to and what the clicker looks like that helps me have confidence in what these later episodes are going to do when they show some of these other types of the bloaters and things of that nature, just the overall storytelling. And if they do some of these adaptations, as FanMasters kind of talked about, I have faith that they're going to do it in good spirit, in a way that's going to open the universe even more. Because while this is one of the most beautifully written video games of all time, I'd say it doesn't mean it's perfect for TV, and you've got to make some executive decisions that work well. But I'm very confident so far that they're doing it right.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the partnership between Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, the director of the video game Druckmann. And he even mentioned, so in what you're talking about, that post scene where he talks about the first time he sees the clickers, and he's like, I brought tears to my eyes, because this is like a realization of something that he spent a good portion of his life creating and figuring out. To be able to see that live action adaptation, which looked amazing, by the way. Like, I was so pleased with the clickers and the noise and like you said, the bending of the contortion of their bodies. And I just thought that was so cool. But I think you have Craig Mazin, who we know can write so well. If you've watched his telling of Chernobyl, like, the guy can write and he can tell a story. So you take someone that understands the medium of television as well as he does, and then you combine that with the love of this game that Neil Druckmann obviously has because it's his baby. He created it. He wrote it. It's his idea. And allowing him to say, no, this needs to be there, or this needs to be there, this needs to be in the game, in the show, and then allowing, of course, Craig Mazin to say, okay, well, we need to do it this way, or we need to make this change. So I think their partnership is a real asset to this show and to HBO in general when it comes to making it, because they really get those little things and even some of the bigger things right. But this is another episode that has so much line-for-line dialogue directly out of the game, and even some of the visuals are, like, when they walk into the museum, like, I was like, the nostalgia hit me hard, because I was like, this looks just like the game. When you're in that museum in the game, like, all those artifacts and the rooms, and, like, it's a little more extended, and there's a couple of places where you have to, like, bust through some places with Joel, but, like, it's accurate, the visuals, and a lot of the dialogue throughout this episode was word for word out of the game. And those are the moments that I'm like, see, we can do this. A real good adaptation of a video game can be made.
Going back to Alec, though, having seen the clickers for the first time, walk me through your experience in the museum here, Alec.
Good thing I was wearing brown pants. Let's just say that. No, but so, we get to the museum, right? And first of all, I'm wondering why Joel is testing how dead this fungal tendril is by hitting it. Seems like a bad idea. But you're going in, and they all have lights on, right? You got to have lights. As soon as the clickers come out, my initial knee-jerk reaction was, why are your lights still on? Because that's the same in every single kind of zombie thing.
Because you didn't know. Yeah.
I didn't know. So
yeah.
I'm thinking, like, if you go back to, like, I Am Legend, right? The scene where Will Smith goes in buildings, like, covering up with his light. I'm like, why are your lights still on? And then it's Joel going, he's telling, Bella Ramsey, they can't hear, or they can't see, they hear. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And I was really impressed that they were able to slip that in, because I was thinking, why are you're just pointing your flashlight right at the thing? Why are you doing that? I'm frozen, aren't I? No, I'm not frozen? Oh my gosh, JJ's frozen. This is wonderful. Anyway, so I was, like, amazed by how well they were able to, kind of do the storytelling bit. But unbelievably, I screamed when the clicker all of a sudden turns around at some minuscule amount of noise being made, because I at this point I was like, oh, cool. No sound. They're going to walk through the museum and be completely fine. Be a little close call here or there, but they're going to be fine. And no, they were not. So that entire sequence of, like, museum coming and going was amazing.
Yeah, it was just cool to see it be brought to life, because having played those scenes in the game,
We lost JJ completely.
Yeah, we lost JJ entirely for that hotel Texas internet not doing it big. But I wanted to ask you, Alec, in terms of Tessa's journey here, where she starts to understand what Ellie is and means, and gets further reinforcement with the wound, and she's not turning and things, and she starts to have hope, where Joel is that cynical, doesn't believe, doesn't want to care. How'd you feel about her character arc?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I know enough about the games to know that Tess was not long for this world. In the sense that I've seen Oshi play through the second one, and there was nothing about Tess in the second one. So I figured she was going to be leaving us post haste. But as for her, like, coming to this realization and that Ellie is important and she could be the cure all, was really cool. But I kept putting myself in her shoes. Dude, if I got bit and it looks like that, compared to Ellie over there, who's just like, oh, shit, got bit in the same place again, I'd be so mad. So props to her for being, like, the bigger person and trying to drive into Joel, like, hey, this girl is special. Was really cool, and I loved it. But I couldn't relate, because I would have just been flat out pissed.
Yeah, I thought she just did such a good job making it believable, and it was just cool to see that kind of character arc come to light in a TV show. I just keep going back. I've just been this episode so much. The visuals and the acting just really brought like the game home for me, and especially the visuals when the cityscape, and even like when Ellie when this episode started where she's laying down in that room, and like the way the light looks to the way the plants look. I'm like, man, it's like they just took the CGI in the game and just made it real and added more CGI. So impressed. It kind of just took my breath away, and I was just in awe of this whole episode. And I love it. Like I keep asking myself, they're doing this so well. I'm like, man, can they take some of my other favorite games and bring these to life? But you already know it's just gonna be a train wreck. But they're doing it so well.
Mattson, you got a question here from FanMaster. What's your prediction for episode 3?
What is my prediction for episode 3? I don't even remember enough of the game to know exactly what's happening next. So, FanMaster,
probably why you want a prediction.
Yeah, like I think that's part of the other thing is because I remember bits and pieces of like I don't exactly know what happens next. I know bits and pieces of the main plot lines from when I play. I haven't played this game. I think I played it 4 years ago at this point, so some things are extremely fuzzy. So the only person that's going to really be able to predict it is JJ because he's played this enough times. I don't have an answer. I literally don't. What's going to happen? I mean, if they're trying to make it, I don't even know what to predict. So that's an embarrassment. So JJ, you got to save me.
Well, so I don't, and it's a great question, FanMaster, but I don't want to go too far because again, I'm working really hard this year with these TV shows that I know a lot about and movies that I already know a lot about to not spoil things that we haven't seen. But what I will say is that we've seen it in the preview. So if you've watched the preview, it's not a spoiler. We're going to meet Bill. And in the show, we're going to meet Frank. Now, there's already a difference there because in the game, you don't really meet Frank in the way that you meet him. What it looks like you're going to meet him in this game. So it looks like there's going to be some flashback. I will say that what I am excited about, and FanMaster, you can relate because you've played this. It's you know the game pretty well. Is that one of the comments that before we go to Bill's town in the game, Joel says to Ellie, I know a guy, he owes me a favor. And you never find out what that favor is, even though it's mentioned between Joel and Bill a couple of times. To the point that when Joel asks him for a favor, it's a pretty out there favor, and Bill's like, I don't owe you that much. And Joel's like, oh, you do. And he knows it. So I think my hope is, based on the preview, that we're going to actually maybe even learn what that favor might come from. Because, again, we don't know that in the game. So I'm excited for that. I'm going to leave it there before I dive into too much spoilery territory. But I'm looking forward because I think that this coming episode will be mostly things that are some of this creative license and flashbacks and things that we haven't seen in the game. So new context, new information, and that, like I said earlier in this episode, really excites me.
Like that Indonesia stuff was so dope.
Yeah.
So cool. I would love to just see anything more with that.
Yeah. So I'm really excited, but I'm excited to meet Frank in the next episode because, like I said, you don't meet him in the same way in the game. So there's a lot coming in these episodes, and so I think episode 3 has the potential to be the most different from the game and yet really be the right place to have that amount of straying from the game because there's a lot of backstory in that part of the game that hinted at but is not talked about other than in passing, where it's knowledge between two characters that we never find out as the player of the game. So I'm really excited. FanMaster, great question. Are we playing live on The Last of Us Part 1 tomorrow? No, because unfortunately I'm in Dallas, and we've already seen what happens when you try to do things with hotel Wi-Fi. So I don't have the equipment to be able to play that game and be able to trust it to go live. However, next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, I will be playing both the second and third parts of the game.
Just like our ticker says at the bottom.
Yeah,
and then
right.
We always do our live recaps on Mondays. But great question.
Yep.
I need it because that's the one thing I'm bummed about. Mario's like, damn, I know exactly like the mirroring of it. But to your point, Jay, I hope they lean more into the Indonesia thing or give us another. Maybe it's not Indonesia, but it's the next hop from there where it's I would love to see like these bombs, these craters, for instance. Like, damn, what did it look like when this started happening a little bit? Where like parts of one thing I didn't love I Am Legend, but I did like at times they gave you those glimpse backs of how it all kind of came to be. And I think if they start to do that with The Last of Us a little bit more, that's something I, as a fan and a viewer of the show, would love to see. And I'm sure you, as I mean, you got to tattoo this game in your arm. Like you're desperate for like, man, these creators of this game, like, give me more. What was in your brain that you couldn't put into the video game? Like, what more do you have in there that I can see?
Yeah. Charles, great point. So he asked if we've heard the buzz about episode 3. Some of the screeners are saying best TV in years. I have. So I've steered clear of some of it because I know a lot of the content, but I have seen people talking about episode 3 being like redefining how good. And really what I've heard, I think the sentence that stuck out to me is one of the screeners was saying that it will forever raise the bar to unattainable levels for video game adaptations. Wow. Because it takes everything that's good about this part of the game. And look, Bill's little arc within the game is one of the best. It's one of the most entertaining. It's funny. It's human. It's frightening. It's tense. So it has all the makings. And then it has a very, I don't want to give too much away, but the story some of the backstory for Bill and who he is that you do get in the game is some of the deepest and most emotional. After, a lot of the beginning of the game is very just tense, getting him out of the city, until you get to Tess, like what we saw with Tess dying in this episode. And then we move right into Bill, where you move into some very emotional pieces with Bill as well. So I'm very much looking to Charles's point to next week. If they continue to set the standard, and I think the story has the opportunity in episode 3 to really take off even beyond what it's already been because of the content that's there. Bill and Frank's story is one that a lot of people like myself that play the game faithfully and love it have a lot of questions about those two, and that we don't ever get answered. So I'm looking forward to it. So Mattson, you mentioned something that I wanted to talk about before I ended up disappearing into the quagmire of hotel internet, and that is the visuals in this episode. Like, I could not stop giggling out loud. Like, one of the things that's always stood apart, even on the PlayStation 3 for this game, is these visuals of Boston. And later on, you'll see like this town of Bills. And so you get these different landscapes and cities and towns, and they all look desolate and broken. And just like the fact that nature has just overgrown these massive, massive cities like Boston to the point that they're unrecognizable almost. And the way that they're pulling these off in this show is outstanding. So kudos to like the people that are doing these visual effects and really getting it right, because Casey kept looking at me last night watching it going, are you okay? Because I seriously would just start randomly giggling every time they would show, like, in the background, the buildings like toppling on each other and the trees and the foliage growing up into the buildings. And it was just amazing to me. And I was just so happy to see that translated into this beautiful television show. So completely and utterly fell in love even more with the visuals of this show this last episode. So it was awesome.
How do you think our boy Javier would have critiqued the gunfighting here in this one?
It's a great question. I think he would have asked why they missed so many shots, but at the same time, like, that's a terrifying thing. I kudos to you if you can shoot straight with those things chasing you down, and they're tough. Like Casey was asking, she asked me, because she's never actually watched me play the game. She just heard me talk about it. And she was asking, what's the difference between what we just saw with all the runners that are laying there on the ground and the clickers? And what's the difference? Why did he get so nervous walking into the museum? And I was like, it's clickers. I was like, this new level of zombie, I was like, it's exponentially different, and it's exponentially more difficult. Like, in the game, and I'm sure you'll see it when I play next week, and that is, it's difficult. When you get to the clickers, especially in the PlayStation 3 version of this, if a clicker got a hold of you, you're done. There's no getting away from it. If it got a hold of you, all that you could do was put your controller down and watch Joel die a very gruesome death. So it was one of those things where I told Casey, I was like, these things don't go down very easy. You have to shoot them very specifically in places or knock them off their feet and hope that they don't get to you. Because if they get you, you're done. Like, there's no escape. So it was really cool to see that. And I can't wait till we see more growth with these, the different versions of the infected, because there's more to come, even beyond when we get a second and hopefully third and fourth and however many seasons they're willing to do with this show. There's even more. The second game has some infected that are quite unbelievably terrifying, like unnerving how frightening they are. So yeah,
get ready, Alec.
I'm calling in sick.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much because, again, there's some cool stuff coming, but looking forward to it. And I can't wait to see Bill. The guy's crazy, but wildly likable, too, even though he's nuts. And there's some dialogue coming in the future episodes that I'm wondering if I shouldn't wonder because they've done it so much, but there's some very funny dialogue coming. And after next week, I think you'll start to is when they're really going to start to see the relationship between Ellie and Joel progress. Because up till now, you haven't really had that chance. So I'm looking forward to that aspect too. But overall, great follow-up. Yeah, that makes sense. So Fan Master, obviously that's one of your favorite parts of the game because he keeps bringing up Henry and Sam, and we've seen them in the previews a little bit, and that's, again, I don't want to give away too much because we're still a ways away. There's a lot to happen before we run into Henry and Sam, but also a very great storyline within the game. So I'm looking forward to those episodes. It's just crazy, my love for this game and how well they've done so far. The more I think about what is coming, the more I just think it's just going to continue to get better and better and better. Because there's a guy named David that you meet that's insane, and I can't wait to meet that because that's a whole wicked storyline that's coming too. So there's so much coming. Gray, welcome. Driving but here, we'll drive safe, but glad that you joined us and are listening.
I got another question in terms of how they're concluding these episodes so far. How do you feel about that? Because it's obviously episode 1 was like an hour and 25. This one was, I think, like 50 something or maybe slightly longer than that. How do we feel about the pace here?
I love it, and I love that it's so varying. You know what I mean? Like, they knew that the first episode they had to be long because they had to give you just the right amount of information and story to get you bought in. And I thought 80 minutes was perfect for this one. I thought it was great. Like, but I'm biased. So, Alec, what do you think? Because you don't have the same biases that I do.
No complaints. When I first saw that the episode 1 was like 120 minutes, like, but it did a great job of holding my attention for that long. And then 50 minutes or 55 minutes or whatever it ended up being was like super sweet spot. And it's almost like they're going to, like, it's almost like they're treating it like a save game, right? Like an automatic save in a game where you get to a certain point or to a cutscene. And then that's where they're clipping it off. So I'd be interested to see if they kind of keep that up. To where you'd expect for a cutscene to enter into the game.
I mean, it's been so good that when I saw the runtime, I knew the runtime for this one, and I was already like, oh. But I mean, an hour and 20 for each episode and how many do we I can't remember the total number we have for.
I think it's 9.
Okay, good. So an hour and 20 for each one would be quite impressive. So, I mean, I'll take what I can get. But from what I understand, the third one's supposed to be relatively long. Kind of ticks back up again based off some of the subject matter we've got to take on.
I think it's 80 minutes. I think that's where I was getting the 80 minutes, not this past. This past was only 50-something, but I think episode 3 is going to be around 80 minutes runtime.
Oh, I showed the wrong one first. Sorry, I had to laugh at this. Fan Master, this is something I actually talk about a lot in movies because, I mean, post-apocalyptic movies, I mean, The Last of Us, it's a game, it's a TV show now, but movies, TV, I mean, it's a hot topic, it's a hot genre. The Walking Dead, all these different games that we play. The one, like The Book of Eli is one of my favorites with Denzel Washington. But I just laugh, like, being alive or being born into these points in time, post-apocalyptic. Like I feel like it just sucks. There's not a lot to, in ways, there's not a lot to live for. Like usually these protagonists, when everything's decimated and quality of life isn't very good, I believe that there's an afterlife. I believe in God. I'm like, dude, just send me there. Like I'm ready to go. If what I believe in is true, I'm ready for the next thing. Like I'm ready for meat, cheese, and whatever else I got up in heaven. Because like you're just slumming it down there. You don't have they don't have internet. They don't really have phone. They're going back to walkie-talkies. They barely even have toilet paper. They might have paper cuts in their ass. Like I don't know what it like. You're just the struggle bus is real. And
heaven has meat and cheese.
Yeah, seriously. And I just feel, I'm like, man, if what I believe in is true, I'd rather be dead than just slumming it out here. But I don't know. That's me. I'm not sure how you guys feel on that. But Bandmaster, that's my opinion. I'm like, man, struggle's real. Doesn't feel good.
I'll do anything for meat and cheese.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm with you. I'd be pissed if I was born. I'd be like, really? Why are you having kids right now? What the shit is this? Yeah, that's funny. I like that. Meat and cheese. Gray, to your point, the cutoffs are where they need to be. I agree. I think to kind of your point, Alec, I feel like the flow of where they get, it really makes sense. And it's interesting because the cut scenes, it does feel like each episode's a cut scene almost, or a grouping with a little bit of gameplay. When I think about the second episode and you're in you're moving through Boston at a kind of a slower pace, there were some. I'm intrigued to see what happens in one of the later episodes because the dialogue when they walked into the hotel in this one, and she says, "Oh man, do you ever stay here in one of these?" And Tess says, "No, it's too rich for our blood," or something like that. That's actually directly out of the game, but it's later, and it's her and Joel that have a conversation walking through a hotel in a different city. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out in the future. But I think, the rest of the episode without that, though, it felt like a lot of the cutscenes with a little bit of the museum gameplay. And then right when the cutscene ends is when and that's the same way. It's the way when these end and you move into gameplay that they're ending the episode. So it's really intriguing how that's working to Gray's and to Alec's point, and even I think Mattson, you talked about it too. But very interesting shit when it comes to the timing of all that and stuff like that. So pretty fun. So I found here's just a list of run times. So episode 1 was actually only 81 minutes. Episode 2, 53. Episode 3, 80. Episode 4, 50. 5:59, 6:59, 7:56, 8:51, and 9, only 43 minutes. So there's your run times. Or estimated. Those are subject to change because they do some edits sometimes in between, but that's where they're at there. Oh, that's messed up. Great. Someone pointed out they started the outbreak in a flower plant. Sarah couldn't make pancakes. Joel didn't bring home a cake. They didn't eat the neighbor's biscuits. Joel escaped immediate infection. Leave it to Gray. I didn't even think about that.
Hey,
Wow.
You don't eat your neighbor whenever they drop cookies by or something like that. You got to know how clean they are. You got to know, like, I'm not like that. I probably would have eaten all those things, but now pay attention to that.
Yeah. Fan Master, I'm not going to put your comment up there because it's got some spoilery shit in there, which it's a great point, though. And I think, to your point, that actor would be a great choice if there's a season 2 that follows game 2 at all.
Fan Master's got some crystal ball shit going on where he's just I know.
Yeah, he's talking. He talks spoilers. I like it. He's like me before I decided I wasn't going to spoil shit anymore. I will say this, though, that I hope, and I'm only bringing this up because I've seen a lot of articles of people talking about season 2 and then comparing it to what they, like some of the casting choices they might make for season 2 if they go. My hope is that at the end of season 1, which is supposedly going to be end of season, or is going to be season 2, right? I hope they don't do season 2 as game 2. I want more. There's a 5-year gap in the games, okay? So the game 1 ends, the next time we see these characters is 5 years later in the story. I want some of the shit that happens in between that. Because the other thing that I run into, and this kind of gives me like the twitchy heebie-jeebies from like Game of Thrones, because when you got past the Game of Thrones series, when you got past the established content, shit went south. I don't think you'll have that same problem because of the connection to Neil Druckmann, that it being a showrunner. And as long as he stays along, I think you can continue on without content that we've seen in a game and have it be good. But I think if they did season 2 and jump it right into game 2, I think you're doing a disservice to this series of games, and not with the amount of content that happens in between 1 and 2 that we just don't know about, except for some flashbacks in part 2. I think there's a lot of opportunity for a second season, maybe even a third season before we go there. The other thing that it allows for is Bella Ramsey, even though she's 19 years old, the actress is 19 years old, she still looks like a good 14-year-old. It would be interesting to me, I think, giving some time, maybe a couple seasons, at least one season in between 1 and 2, allows her to age a little bit more, even to give some of that rugged look. And now makeup does a lot, but that's just my opinion. I hope they don't jump right into Game 2 and Season 2, because I don't know where you go. Knowing what happens in Game 2, I don't know how you go from there. But anyway. Me too, Fan Master. Me too. That's funny shit. I'm hoping for the car conversation with Joel and Ellie after they leave, Bill. But anyway. You guys have any other things you want to talk about when it comes to episode 2?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We've covered it. I think
Perfect.
we're all very impressed and can't wait for episode 3.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise here. This is my new favorite show ever made. So, and we're 2 episodes in. I don't think anybody was surprised by that, with as good as it's been, that it would be. But it just goes right along and continues my love of this content and these characters in this game and show. So, with that, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us when they're not tuning in to watch us live on Tuesdays or Mondays.
Happy to. Ready for some fun dialogue. Here we go. Thank you for tuning in to this, the second episode of The Last of Us on HBO. So far, it seems to be doing an exceptional job, from clickers to weird kissing scenes that I imagine is a play-for-play on how Mattson's first kiss went down. Guys, we are in the midst of a huge push for content, from TV to movies to even JJ live streaming some sweet game footage. So mash that follow or subscribe button and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on everything, because it is a lot for the next little while. If this still isn't enough content for you dirty little content whores, check out the past episodes of What's Our Verdict wherever podcasts can be found, such as Stitcher, Ghana, or Apple Podcasts. Just search for What's Our Verdict. Special thanks to our current patron, Ginger Appreciation Society. If you were a clicker, you'd steal my heart. You too can join the What's Our Verdict Patreon, where for less than the cost of a Hulu subscription, with ads of course, you can access better content than Hulu and not even have to deal with ads. You're welcome. With that, I will send it back to the King of Swing, the Terrible Titan, JJ.
That's right. Thanks, Alec. They get better every time. Yeah. Again, just a reminder, I won't be playing live tomorrow. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in a hotel, so it doesn't functionally work. But I will be back at it next Tuesday, so a week from tomorrow. With that, guys, it's been great. We've had people tuning into the live. Great comments. Fan Master Gray, Charles, thanks as always for joining us and putting in your 2 cents and comments and spoilers and questions. We love it. Keep doing it. We're excited to have you. Do you have something, Mattson?
I just need to defend for our listeners out there that my first kiss did go a lot better than having fungi come out of a zombie's mouth and having an awkward death stares. I was not trying to light something on fire. It was an enjoyable experience, and I was very happy with that. So I just had to set the record straight there. Thank you.
It's good to know. It's good to know. I was a little worried about you, but you know. Yeah.
And
so,
Master, if you haven't kissed someone yet, or if you have, congrats. If you haven't, it's gonna be great. It won't be like that.
You don't know that.
That's also fair. But we digress in such a great way. But as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!